Hi again. I'm going to show you today a new technique which uses the simple shape concept. It's taking it a little further, and this time I'm going to use a piece of vine charcoal and a rag. You can use paper towels, but rags are a little easier to use, a little softer. This is a terry cloth, and that's kind of the best one. So I've got my bear right over here, and you're going to have a photograph of it. I'm going to start the same way I started the last one, which is to just do some basic simple shapes. Now the beauty of the vine charcoal is that it's very soft and you can push it around. You can kind of push it back into the paper. So it gives you this kind of nice ghosty looking area. So very scribbly, right? So I'm just going to take my rag and push that back a little bit. Doesn't go away completely, but it kind of pushes it back and it gives me a kind of a gray tone on my paper. I'm also going to be using my my kneaded eraser, and I have also one of those pencil style erasers, but I'll probably use that later if I use it at all. So I'm going to use the same basic technique, which is I'm going to be refining as I go. But this time I'm going to use the eraser a lot more. So now I'm going to come back in here and I'm going to kind of darken an area, but still kind of using simple shapes in a very sort of loose and sketchy sort of line. Paying attention to the negative space. We'll talk more about negative space in another exercise, but it's everywhere all the time. Here's that big leg and the foot. It all joins up. Another leg. Oops. You can see I've got a little too much going on right there. Whoops. Rolled away. Okay, back to my rag. And whoops. Sometimes you have to hold your easel or your board a little bit when you rub. Notice that as I do this, I get a darker value every time, which is nice because that means that I can use my eraser to kind of erase out the lights. Okay, back to the vine charcoal. All right, now, every time I do this, I get a little bit better. I get a little bit more definition to my bear, and I'm realizing he's a little too high there. The leg has to come down a little bit. So this repetition of the same basic shapes over and over, but refining every time is what really makes this powerful. And because vine charcoal is so soft and so easy to push around, it makes a perfect medium for this. You can do this in pencil, but it's a lot better if you can do it in vine charcoal. So now I need to kind of look at the relationships of the shapes. That's the edge of my bottom leg, then the top arm can't come out too far because I have to look at the relationship of this to this. The head probably needs to be a little higher. So I'll just repeat the same basic shape I had below. And then this arm comes out a little bit here. That leg. This foot is too high. So I'll move it down. And then there's a line that comes down. So I can see that it's even too high still. So that area is kind of a mess. But that's okay, because I'm going to rub it out again. Rub, rub. Notice every time I rub, it goes back a little further. The first rub has almost disappeared. So one more time on my bear, at least one more time, let's put it that way. So this time I'm going to come up a little higher, drop that ear is lower. You'll find when you draw that you want to make stuff up. You say, oh, I think that should be placed where I think it should be placed, but really you need to place it where it is on the object you're drawing. So this arm comes just. One thing I like to do is use my tool to measure, and we're going to be talking a lot more about measuring very soon. It's too wide. This comes up. All right, one more pushback, and then I'm going to move to my eraser, because my eraser is going to be able to take out the lights, which is going to define the lights for me. So that was 4 passes of charcoal. And now I've got this kind of ghosty looking image, but I can now take my eraser and start to erase out some of the lighter areas. I'm just looking at areas on the bear that are lighter. Sometimes take a little pressure there to get stuff off. So light along that ear, on the top of the head. On this front leg, quite a bit of light right in the top. Fades into a darker area, the edge of the foot right here, very light. You're seeing this at a slightly different angle than I am, but that's okay. That's always going to be true. Light in here. Just a little bit of light in here. So you can kind of see that adding the light and shadow is going to give it a lot more form, sense of form, illusion of form. Now back to my vine charcoal. This time I'm going to use my finger rather than the rag. The rag really takes a lot off, and we want that at first, but after we've got a pretty decent bear on our page, then we want to actually just smear more than remove the charcoal. So now I'm looking at where do I have some darker areas. Well, a little bit under this chin. Just going to push it with my finger, kind of like finger painting. Kind of fun. I love vine charcoal for this reason, because it's so flexible. You can really push it around. So here we have a bear done with vine charcoal, starting with the simple shapes. And this is a very powerful way to work. I could refine this a lot more than I have by using compressed charcoal, charcoal pencil, my stick eraser. So there's a lot of things that I could still do with this drawing, but for now, I'm just going to stop because this is where I wanted to get today. This is the result that I am looking for to talk about simple shapes, erasure, correction, observation. All of these things are going in. There's other tools as well, negative space, aligning. We'll talk more about those separately, but for now, I want you to just practice with building up from simple to complex. It's really fun to do it with the vine charcoal, but just be aware that it's pretty messy, right? So when you're done, definitely clean up your workspace. If you have an easel, wash it down, just spray it down, wash the area around your drawing. And what I recommend is that you take a piece of newsprint paper and put it over this after you've taken a picture of it to upload, so that it keeps other paper from getting messed up. You can use your Scotch tape to tape the page or the newsprint page on there. So that's the end of this exercise. Have some fun with it. It's very, very malleable. This fine charcoal is very soft. That's both its blessing and its curse. So that's it for this demonstration.